Okay, so we are officially live in effect, and while the good sister gets situated, as you know, it's so wonderful. Another beautiful night. I know on this globe floating around. Oh, let me get my camera right too. Floating around this third dimension and this blue marble in this Milky Way galaxy. Another wonderful night. And as always, we have another wonderful individual on the other side of the screen. Very honored to have the good sister. But if you do not know me already, yeah, this is Muzosa Onkat, aka Your Brozo, and this is the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. And we are here, Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. Here we are here to uplift humanity. In addition to help aid and assist the awakening of the melanated zombies that have been asleep for quite a while. I'm very happy to see they have started to wake back up. Very happy to see that. If you haven't already, please go to polkadot.rabbitpodcast.com. Oh, let me go under and pick up the book, Bicultural Living and Living the World of Illusion. A lot of people always ask me why I have such a diverse outlook on life. I guess diverse, you know, um, audience members, diverse, topics. Read the book, explains it all. I promise. Also, of course, I'm trying to make some things happen here at Polka Dot Rabbit Podcast. So please support. I got my cash app up there, PDR Corp. Please also, in addition, follow, like, and share so we can get this, everywhere. Get all this good information. Enough of me. I'll be quiet now and get to our esteemed guest, the good sister Madonna Marie. Please tell the audience, who you're, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Well, peace, everybody. My name is Madonna Marie. Um, that is my actual name, not a fictitious one. I am known for lifestyle and business consulting, and I do a little bit of everything from activism on behalf of melanated people in the diaspora, also community work and service here in the Atlanta and Metro Atlanta area. So that's just me in a summary.
Okay,
Glad
all
to be
right.
here.
That's Oh, I'm glad you're here. I'm saying I'm very happy that you jumped on, and I'm very happy to build with you, good sister. So, so as in your bio, and as I know as well, you weren't born in America, correct?
Nope.
Yeah.
Not born and raised, but I have spent quite some time here in America.
So yeah, where were you? Where were you born? Where were you born? And where did you live outside of, the states?
Okay, so I was born on St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and I was
Mm-hmm.
raised on an island. It's called the Nature Isle of the Caribbean. It's Dominica.
Mm-hmm.
I've been down, or I was down there since I was about 3 weeks old, and then left from there when I was going on 9, and then went back to St. Thomas with my grandmother, stayed there for a little bit, and then my mom, she came back into my life, and I came to Hampton, Virginia to
Oh,
meet.
Hampton. Okay.
Yeah, it was Hampton. That's the first place I went. Spent 6 months in Hampton, then 6 months in Jacksonville, and then we came to Atlanta.
Okay. Well, let me get my phone. Okay, cool. So, and how long? Well, like, what was the break? What was the time frame of, like, you growing up, like, where, and like, what was the breakdown age wise? I guess, yeah, that's the easiest way to say it.
My foundational years, my youth was spent in Dominica.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 2 years out of that youth in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. I spent no time on St. Croix. I was just born there. Um, and then I've been in the States for 23 years now, 23,
Okay.
24. Yeah.
So could you kind of like talk about growing up there? Because a lot of people has never even left the country. You know what I'm saying? And I guess I saw a stat that said 10% of Americans, you know, 10% of Americans have passports. So there's a lot of folks that can't even when they say, "Oh, I lived outside the country," they're like, what is?" Could you kind of talk about growing up outside of the states? You know what I mean? And how it was growing up in, on your end.
Dominica,
Hmm.
let me tell you, when I first came to the States and I told people about where I was from, they were like, it doesn't sound like a real place. And I'm like, but it is. Um, it is probably, I don't know, 80% rainforest. We
Oh
have
man.
365 rivers and rivers, rainfalls, creeks, those types of things. A lot of water,
Hmm.
a lot of exotic animals. Like growing up there, I didn't necessarily think that they were exotic. Like I grew up seeing the blue whales come through
Mm.
because they migrate down there. We're in the deepest part of the Caribbean Sea. We're in the
Mm.
Lesser Antilles. A lot of people in the States actually don't separate the Caribbean between Greater Antilles and Lesser Antilles. So Lesser Antilles would be St. Martin, St. Martin, and down, and then to South America, and then everything else up to the Bahamas and Bermuda would be Greater Antilles, to include Jamaica, of course, Haiti, and Dominican Republic.
Wow. So a lot of nature, right? A lot of
Yes,
nature.
it is the nature isle. It is the emerald of the Caribbean Sea.
Mm.
That's because it's not predominantly touched by man. It is predominantly green. A lot of
Oh, okay.
forestry, a lot of natural living, bush living, if you will.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I grew up going to the beach. I mean, we had things that came through there. Dominica is an independent nation. They've been
Mm-hmm.
independent for 44 years.
Okay.
The last person to own them would have been Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Queen Elizabeth II is the one that gave them their independence. So they're a sovereign nation in the Caribbean.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful. You know what I'm saying? No ties, being free. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
that's a, yeah, that's a beautiful word, right?
To
Freedom,
read
free.
something different in people and then to come, to larger countries and see certain things and experience certain things and
Mm-hmm.
have to maneuver to try to
Yeah.
help people is like, wow, the work, the work
Yeah.
that people think that they're doing is like you haven't even gotten a quarter of the way because of
Yeah.
all the different things that they have going on that work against you.
Yeah. 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 I can completely see that. So religious wise, like in that island, like what are the main religions in that area?
Huh. I guess it'd be an equal split. You have it's a hyper colonized nation, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you have Roman Catholic Church influence. You've got
Mm-hmm.
Methodist Church. When the churches start to split from the Pope's rule, and then they created that what is it called? Up here, it's called the Southern Baptist Commission, and I
Okay.
forgot what it's called in the West Indies. But
Mm-hmm.
it's all the other derivations of whatever religious sect. So your Presbyterian, Methodist,
We're gonna have
whatever.
the whole list, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So, but the church that my great grandfather, 'cause I grew up with my great grandparents, that he preached at a Methodist church, but it was
Okay.
more like older Methodist meaning when it first broke away from Roman Catholic, so it still had that Catholic type
Mm-hmm.
influence. Yeah,
Gotcha.
not
Gotcha.
like Methodist here.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So was religion a big thing there? Was it like where a lot of the people, like, did you have the people also, like, you have the Maroons and people that are like doing their own thing as far as the dealing with their own customs spiritually? Was that something as well that was kind of on the other side of that?
That's equally in each home. There's
Mm-hmm.
separation from it. Only in the larger countries that there's a separation.
Uh,
I grew up again with my elders, so my great grandparents, my great aunts, my great uncles. What do they call grand cousins, great cousins? Like
mm-hmm.
2, 3 generations, and some people are still living from 4 generations in the rear from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I it was more so like all of the things that they talk about in stories here, like I was living it every single day. As far as like you got the people who are practicing uh the East and West African
Mm-hmm.
spiritual traditions,
Yeah.
and then you have the Marooners, which are mixed in with, for us it's the Kalinago, and Kalinagos are mixed in with the Arawaks, and then
Mm-hmm.
go back just a little bit, there's one called the Siabonis, and they were mixed in with them too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different things that are mixed in with that, and there's a whole separate one for that. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have the people that are descendants of the colonizers, and they still do whatever it is that they brought to the island. So
Mm-hmm.
last person again influenced the island would be Britain, but we have
Okay.
Britain and France. that influenced it heavy.
Now, you were talking like the Arawak. Now, are the Arawak, would they be like melanated, woolly haired beings, or would they be like melanated, straight hair? You know what I mean? Like, what would be the phenotype of a atypical, like the indigenous Arawak?
You had some people with, well, I guess you'd say wavy hair, and you have some
Mm-hmm.
people with the straight hair. So
Okay.
it's more like you have East and West Indians. So East
Okay.
Indians have like that bone straight. That's the Asian Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And the West Indians is all the indigenous Indians from South America, all the Caribbean islands,
Mm-hmm.
North America, all the way up to Canada. So that's West
Mm-hmm.
Indian,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the West Indies.
Okay.
So um, all of those Indians are different derivations, if you will. Like they only started to mix when they started to bring, Africans over, or Africans were
Mm.
migrating
Gotcha.
over,
I
doing their
got you.
conquests. So
Okay. So I know you said you were around by like you were raised by a lot of the elders. Now, dealing like with spirituality and that type of stuff, what did they bring to the table? Was it more like Christian stuff? Was it more like indigenous mindset? What did they bring? What did they bring to you?
I'm multicultural. So I have
Mm-hmm.
Kalinago, which is the Carib Indian, and then I
Mm-hmm.
also have African in
Mm-hmm.
my ancestry, and then that's on both sides of the fence.
Okay.
And then, of course, yes, a little bit of colonizers because again, we were hyper colonized. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing, if you guys remember in history between the French and the British, the only thing that keeps Britain and France apart right now and somewhat in some kind of speaking order is a treaty. I can't think off the top of my head right now what that treaty is because my mind is trying to concise information. But
Mm-hmm.
um, before that treaty, when they were colonizing, it was France. France came first, and
Mm-hmm.
Britain was last to the table. Or France didn't come before everybody else. It was Spain, then Portugal, then France, then Britain. Britain was last.
Mm-hmm.
However, Britain and France have always been at each other's neck for land, for
Mm-hmm.
territory, things of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
resources, those types of things. So when they were setting up the annexations for their governments, they would come, behind each colony that was already set up, and they
Mm-hmm.
were going to war over it, taking it over, killing off the settlers, taking half of their slaves, taking them to another one, trading them off, whatever, taking them up all the way up to North America.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of, like I said, different mixes. So we have
Mm.
the Kalinago influence, which is the Caribs, and they're more indigenous spiritually. They still deal with, the bones, the same thing. It's kind of like mimics the same as Africans.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, there are slight differences,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what made it okay or made them comfortable enough to even mix because they had similarities.
Similarities, yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that. I can see that. Okay, so it's like it's interesting because as you know, in the States, it's kind of like you know, everybody's Christian, and well, not everybody, but especially in Black America, most of the people are Christians, and anything outside of that is like, oh, you're not Christian, you're Muslim, and so you kind of grew up, well, I guess, with more what's the word I'm trying to say, with more tolerance. You know what I'm saying? Tolerance is just different spiritual systems
You said
because you're
more
exposed to
tolerant,
more. Yeah.
not necessarily tolerant.
Mhm.
When you're dealing with that many different spiritual situations,
Mhm.
uh, your spirituality is a electro connection to
Mhm.
all of it.
Yeah.
So if you understand that and you know that, I can't not adhere to either one. I can't just pick one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the issue. That's how they kept us disconnected from our source innately. They made
Mhm.
us practice how they practice when we
Mhm.
were never supposed to practice how they practice.
Mhm.
So for my indigenous blood that runs in my veins, those people are written about twice by
Mhm.
Christopher Columbus. They were known as savages. Them people were killing off the Spaniards every
Mhm.
time they came.
Mhm.
So they were not trying to conform. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, as far as that goes, it's just like to know or to see a Dominican on Dominica and watch how they operate. It's because we're tied to everything. We operate within everything, but it still all translate back to the same source.
Mhm. Yeah.
So no, not tolerant. And you cannot be tolerant because there are things that do not adhere to you on a
Mm,
molecular level. So I can't
gotcha.
be tolerant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Now, growing up over there, obviously, like dealing with food, because I know you're really into food, and how how was it just experiencing like the food over there, the diet? You know what I mean? Like it had to be like fresher foods. You know what I'm saying? You know, as opposed to here. Like how what was that like? What did that look like over there? And how was it as far as learning? You know how to cook. You know what I mean? From that perspective, a fresher perspective.
Cooking is a part of your lifestyle. Like that's how
Mm-hmm.
you sustain. So
Mm-hmm.
there was like, I mean, that's just something you grow up doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Whereas here, most people would set up a time to teach a child so that they can know how to at least be some type of independent. That's
Mm-hmm.
your life. If
Yeah.
you kill something, fish for something, you have to know how to cook it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's lifestyle, that's culture,
Yeah.
that's who you
Culture.
are. Period.
Mm-hmm.
So here, people are like, "Oh my gosh!" I don't tell people that I cook first and foremost. They find that out because I own a business and I have other people that I normally go on as staff, or I try to staff because it's like, don't lock me down to just cooking. Cooking is a part of me.
Yeah.
I didn't go to
Yeah.
study how to cook. That's what I do. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And the fact that they took it away from people and created a school, it's not even about the debt. You just created a school. You created a whole nother process for humans being humans. Everybody should know how to cook.
Yeah.
Everybody should know what it smells like by the time your food is done. Everybody should know how to intuitively put things together in the kitchen. That's not something that should be separated from people.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, like growing up down there eating fresh, everything is farm to table. It's not even a farm and then 25 to 30 minutes in a car and then I get it. It's farm. Everybody has one for the most part. And then I can go get it right there
Mm-hmm.
within maybe 15 minutes max.
Yeah.
Because, every part of the island, there's some type of a stand. Each part of the island on Dominica has what's called parishes. So each parish
Mm-hmm.
has fishermen, bakers, seamstresses, shoe people, all that. Each
Mm-hmm.
has a little economy within one. And then, of course, each you can barter and trade within each little micro economy. But yeah, that's how you, that's what it's like living
Yeah.
down there, being that close to nature. I
That's
suppose
that,
that's how to
that
eat
sound
food.
yeah, that sounds very simple, uncomplicated, and very efficient. You know, you know what I'm saying? Like, it sounds like it'd make much easier than having to find out, which fast food restaurant did you have to, what's the best coupon you have for a fast food restaurant? You know what I'm saying?
Man, listen.
And how long you fall out after you get the itis after eat the Big Mac and a Whopper. You know what I'm
Yeah. Oh man, no, no, there's no ice. It's like the food is electric. The food comes
saying?
straight out of the ground, or straight out of the ocean,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
you're eating it.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting though, because when I was in Haiti, that was one of the first times everything was just, from the, like you said, from the market. And I was just, taking it in. And after I ate it, I was just like, I was just like, it didn't feel like I felt eating most of my life over here.
You
It
were
felt
more
clean. That's the
aware.
word, clean. That's what it felt. It clean. It felt clean.
Yes,
Like, you know what I'm saying? It was like no itis, no, you know what I'm saying? And so I can, I can definitely relate to that.
yes,
So
that is true.
you individually, because I know you, you, you're very in tune with yourself, spiritual, all aspects of yourself. So could you kind of talk about your spiritual journey to like where you were, how you were from maybe the beginning, an awakening, and and how where you had that awakening, where you are today, the evolution of your spiritual journey. How about that?
Uh, let's see. That's still an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been awake. In the West
Mm-hmm.
Indies, we call being born big, or we call it being
Mm.
born big. It's as if like your soul is older,
Yeah.
bigger than your body. So I've been playing catch up for a long time. That'll be the major part of it foundationally. Um, if I don't even have to close my eyes, I can think of all of my elders times. 'Cause I was raised as an only child. I'm the oldest of 16. However,
Mhm.
I was the only one raised in Dominica. So, I
Mhm.
was around them all the time. So I can think of all the times where I'm correcting or not in a disrespectful way. It's just
Mhm.
they were educators, all of them. Some of them were in finance for the country or whatever. Some of them worked in the prime minister's office. So it's just the way in which they operated with me. It was like I was like a little professional in a house
Mhm.
with older people. So I've always been awake, always seen people for who they are,
Mhm.
um, seen people's spirit.
Yeah.
Like especially if they have something that's sitting with them, I could see it. And I never really
Mm.
fool with people. So my great grandparents and my elders used to keep me, covered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Taught me how
Yeah.
to pray real, real young. Prayer
Mhm.
has been a big part of it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And then I mean, it wasn't until 12 years ago, faith.
Mhm.
Faith is what's got me this far. Faith,
Yeah.
and that's it. Faith
What?
and execution.
Okay. Yeah. I can see how those go hand in hand. So, would it be fair to say, or correct me if I'm wrong, that I guess in this journey you're making your own way to how I mean, are you like taking different parts of different places, or to make you know what I mean? Like, what
No.
was your motivation to kind of bring what you to compile what you have in your your own individual spiritual system?
You said what was my motivation? The way that I am,
Mm-hmm.
that has been a continuous change, and it's really like when you're like I don't know if you heard me, like I literally rely on spirit, God,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
source energy. So
Mm-hmm.
people talk about downloads all the time. Those things are not separate, and I
Yeah.
don't separate the process. I apply it across the board.
Uh-huh.
So of course I pray. I stay in a consistent state of prayer. That takes
Mm-hmm.
practice because you have to have a certain level of discipline, and you have to know how to utilize your brain simultaneously, pay attention to what's going on and pray over it so that you can look for signs to discern so you know which way to go. Like that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that took time, but doing it that way is that's just how God leads me wherever it is I go. Like every
Mm.
situation that anyone can bring up, I can give you the backstory for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, somebody said to me today, they were like, it's really inspiring how you execute. And I'm like, that's not me, that's God. Like,
Mm.
I can't take it at, I can't be like, oh yeah, I made that happen. You know what I mean? I'm
Mm-hmm.
me. I may have my personality may seal the deal, might have something to do with piquing somebody's interest. But if you ask me, how did I get there and how did this transpire? There's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
That's the story you want to know. Like that's a whole other story. So
Mm-hmm.
like I understand what people see, and I understand what they can assume, but
Mm-hmm.
I know my perspective and I know what's happening in my universe. And if I was the person creating it, I'd have something else to say. But
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean? Like I've been
Yeah.
led this way.
I
I've
do.
always been led this way. And
Mm-hmm.
then I have again faith and no fear. No fear,
Mm-hmm.
even if it takes me to some place that it might seem like it might give me some harm. I'm not even thinking about the harm. It's other people thinking about the harm.
Yeah.
But I'm following
Mm-hmm.
within reason.
So I'm gonna jump back a little bit. I, it's so interesting because like everything's so ass backwards in so many ways in the states, and food in particular. You know what I mean, and just nutrition and that it's it's like I still remember seeing the food pyramid, you know what I mean? Growing up, now you had to have your milk, your cheese, and your meat and all that, all that stuff, right? And of course, that's all until you can do change until you can look to yourself and find out, what it really should be.
Mm,
And and come me personally, after my research, I'm like, man, that food pyramid is like the worst thing. The older one. I think it was changed a little bit, like in the 2000 something. But the old pyramid was completely ass backwards as far as dealing with nutrition. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So when it comes to like your cooking and your food, was it something like that it was like a conscious thing when you make the when you make these different dishes.
Mhm.
Was it a conscious thing to, I guess, combine this in a nutritional manner? You know what I mean? For you, like your recipes when you're making food for others.
Um, I mean, everything I do is conscious. I have
Hmm.
to be, again, to be in a consistent state of prayer means you have to be consistently mindful. You have to be consistently present. That's how you stay conscious.
Hmm.
Um, so, I mean, it's a lot of brain work because it's a lot of confusing things going on simultaneously. So,
Yeah.
anything that I do for people is conscious, whether I'm consulting in their lifestyle, giving them
Hmm.
guidance, so they could, because people are seeking balance, or in your business consulting, and even down to something as simple as food. Yes, it is conscious, but I mean, I keep it simple.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
build it with
Yeah.
flavor, with everything that comes from the earth, and
Hmm.
whatever it is I'm pairing with it, it just comes out that way. And then I got good energy, so I mean, that makes it
Oh,
even better.
one thing I must say I'm definitely interested in hearing you talk about is like, because I hear you talk about like working with indigenous cultures. Could you kind of like, go into a little bit more detail? Because when you're talking about that specifically, because I'm the more and more I see the world, the more and more I get more drawn to indigenous cultures. Yeah, could you kind of uh, elaborate and talk about that some?
Well, my question to you would be, which type of indigenous? You talking about Africa indigenous, or you talking about Indian indigenous to the
I'll,
Indies?
well, I'll I'll throw it back at you. I'm what your experiences your experiences with the people that you've worked with. I mean, so if it's African, cool. If it's whatever you have, I'm just interested like your personal experiences just dealing with different cultures.
Oh, I mean, it's a range depending.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a range. I've dealt with all types of people. I've dealt with people, predominantly within the diaspora. That's where
Okay.
I like to stay. Um,
Hmm.
yes, that is a preference. No, I'm not
Hmm.
biased. It's for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Um, so I've dealt with Filipino people. I've dealt with
Hmm.
Hawaiians. I've dealt with Samoans. I've dealt with Lakotas, Dakotas, Geechee people, Mexicans, some Aztec descendants, Ashanti
Hmm.
Aztecs that made it to
Hmm.
Georgia. Um, what are those people? Seminoles.
Okay.
Uh, and then the ones that are in Florida, they were new. I can't think of their names right now, but they're also tied to us. The people that I named, those people are actually tied to us through DNA, through blood, because
Okay.
our people were brought, and some of our tribe people were brought, through colonization and ended up in those places. But yeah, those people.
Okay. Now, another question. Do a lot of these different indigenous cultures, do they all have certain ways in which they deal with like plant-based medicine that are kind of similar? Be it be like mushrooms or ayahuasca. Like, do they most of them all have that type of, I guess, way of healing? Also, rites of passages that are similar. Do you see similarities in all of these?
Yeah, that's where
Uh-huh.
that terminology "we are all one people" comes from. It's
Hmm.
not just to the West Indian culture, reggae music, or Africa. The indigenous people are talking about it as well,
Yeah.
because even down to the creation story, there are major similarities
Hmm.
that even tie into the oldest Bible in Ethiopia. So,
Yeah.
yes, we are all connected. So, at the end of the day, no matter how people want to have the conversation about what race came first, where, currently, right now on the earth, within the 8 billion population, probably the majority of it is connected through
Hmm.
the same source.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's major similarities, major.
Yeah.
And it does not tie into that statement that people are saying, like, oh, we were all the melanated ones, you're all black. No, black people, no, no, no. It's literally different DNA. Yeah, and it's not about what your skin color looks like. It's about what's in your blood. Your blood
Yeah.
tells your story.
Mm-hmm.
People only resonate based on what hue of skin they see. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not how you should go about it.
Yeah.
And I don't, if there was more understanding about that, I think people would be able to find what they're looking for faster.
I agree. I agree 100%. Especially even coming from a dealing with being a cosmosan, so to speak, and looking down and just being a part of this living in the third dimension. It's like, once you tap in and see how there's much more, it's like I think it's me personally, I just think it's kind of it's ridiculous actually just to deal on the avatar aspect of individuals. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the skin suit, just dealing with the skin suit and having biases, whatever the case may be. I there's way much more than that. You know what I mean?
Correct.
That's just my personal opinion. You know what I mean? But it's once you, I think once you start to o- really understand that that's way more than this third dimension, and kind of go to different places, then like I said, your avatar really doesn't really hold much weight when it comes to manifesting things, being a good person. It's all on you. So, that's just
Right.
my personal opinion. So we all have our journeys and stuff. I don't know. I remember we were building earlier when we were talking,
Hmm.
previously, and you were talking about how you had a fight with cancer,
Hmm.
and like what's the story behind that? Could you talk about that?
Yeah. I actually had just moved back to Atlanta in 2018, July, and I came to the Sandy Springs area. And I think I was there. I was at that's my grandmother's house. So I was at my grandma. She's no longer there, by the way, because she caught cancer as well. But she caught it in her stomach. I caught it in my lungs.
Oh.
So it was myself, my two children, my grandmother, and then her last born son, who is he's handicapped. He's paralyzed from the neck down.
Mm.
And one day I got up because when I first came back, I was rehoming businesses. So I took a day job at Hellsburg in Town Center Mall. One day I got up and I said to my grandmother, I said, I'm coughing up this mucus and it's the color of like, black shoe, my shoe, the tire on
Oh.
the car. And she was like, and she's a retired nurse. And she was like, that's not normal. She was like, you might want to have them go and do a scan. And she was like, you want to go to the doctor and check it out. I'm not necessarily sure. And I'm like, okay, have you never seen this before?
You're a
All
nurse.
your time. Yeah, and all your time as a nurse, but okay. um, but I went down to Emory and they did a scan and it came back that I did have cancer and I
Mm-hmm.
had, the spots on the lungs or whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
my biggest thing was I did not want to do chemotherapy
Mm.
because one, I had already taken care of, well, she was older than me, but still, nonetheless, it's chemo and it can really wear out your body.
Yeah.
And she had a lot of different side effects. She was retired military, but she went from working two jobs to not working at all and not being able to drive her car because
Mm.
of chemo. So yeah, I was like, if I can do this in a holistic way, I prefer to try that unless I'm like dying and crashing, and then you guys really have to step in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they allowed me to do that, and it was a lot of farm to table eating. I got to
Yeah.
know a lot of farmers, a couple of farmers with a couple of different crops here in the Atlanta area.
Mm.
Radon gas is how it got into my lungs and into my grandmother's stomach. So she lived in an older apartment complex,
Ah.
which probably needed to be what's that word, renovated,
Renovated. Yeah.
because it didn't or it was built before they created the system that would have been fed through the building the way
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
apartments were
Way
built
it's supposed to be done properly. Yeah.
so yeah, so radon gas either comes from overpopulation or overpollution, where it's a lot of cars, it's congested, and in the Georgia 400 North South area, it's pretty congested.
All the time.
They had to
All the time.
expand. Look, they had when I left from Atlanta, they had to expand the highway, I believe, by one or two lanes
Yeah.
just fit, yeah, just to
Mm-hmm.
accommodate people.
Yep.
So the first question they asked, they said, "Do you live in a heavily populated area?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I'm in Sandy Springs. That's where I am." And they were like, "Yeah, that's you might want to get a little closer to the country." So I actually went out to Lithonia, and I
Okay.
spent some time out there, and then I ended up down in Morrow, So
Mm-hmm.
a little bit closer to the trees.
Yeah.
And then a lot of exercise, building your lungs, because your lungs are muscles by themselves,
Mm.
um, to keep them strong. Because I started getting really sick. I was diagnosed June of 2019. So
Mm-hmm.
by December of 19, it really started to hit me. Um, COVID hit in 2020.
Uh,
And then I had a couple of clients where, because I was still, meal prepping for other people, because that's a way of keeping yourself going. I'm not going to sit down. Like, I'm
yeah.
already
Yeah.
not taking chemo, so I'm not going to sit down. So I cut myself back to a couple of clients, and then I gave, majority of my work to other chefs that work with me, just to keep those clients going, because
Mm-hmm.
they were essential workers and they had meal prep, because now they're working longer hours and those types of things. Um, and yeah, I mean, that was really it. Just trying to do it as much as I can,
Mm-hmm.
farm to table. I didn't change the way I ate. I changed the way I sourced. I honed
Mm.
more on how I source. So what that means is, or what that looks like, I already eat meat maybe 1 to 2 times a week, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm eating pasture raised or halal, and those two are one and the same. They're allowed to live how they should, graze how they should.
Mm-hmm.
They're not fed any feed with fillers, and then they butcher them in a clean way.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then my eating in season with my fruits and vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
That, and then herbal teas for sure, because with cancer, you have also mucus pockets that form,
Mm-hmm.
and I created a lot of different types of herbal blends for teas
Mm-hmm.
that allowed me to be able to bring it up and out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you were like the perfect example where they say what do they say? Let your food be your medicine, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I just went back to how I was being fed when I was a child. All
yeah.
things were exactly how my great grandmother kept me healthy. So I just went back to what she did,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
that worked. Soups, stews, for the most part. And that also brings me back to like original eating, how the
Yeah.
people ate where I'm from or where they were taken from. So that has a lot to do with, it's not eating for your blood type, it's like eating for your DNA.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yep.
Know
That
where
makes
you're
perfect sense.
from, know who the people of that area is, know how
Mm-hmm.
they eat, feed your body that way, because your DNA responds to that.
Yeah.
Then the
Exactly.
herbs that you do, thank you, the herbs that you do, those need to be based on where you live,
Mm-hmm.
because it's environmental at that point. So you eat for your DNA, but you take herbs and make medicine within those herbs for your environment. So your allergies are going to be seasonal to the environment that you live in.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
utilize the herbs that are best for those seasonal allergies in that environment. Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
the honey. Eat the honey that's made by the bees in your environment.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, that's so beautiful. So nature, nature itself, the best provider, planet, etc.
yep.
Got all that cancer out of you, and that's a beautiful. I'm so happy to hear that story. It just makes me happy to hear that you were able to go through that adversity and come out on top. You know what I'm saying? And learn. I'm sure you learned a lot of lessons from that. Like you said earlier, a lot of praying, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with that as well, right?
Yes. Praying to keep my sanity, because you have to keep the stress down.
Yeah.
And then, like, just having real conversations with God, like, hey, I have kids. I gotta raise these kids.
Hmm.
Yeah. You need to
Yeah.
come in and step up and do your thing, do your thing. Do
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
thing.
You- Um. So you said you were in the States here for 20 some odd years, and you lived in different country prior. So when you come here, and you're getting of age, and you're starting to see all these things you lived before, and you're like seeing how things navigate in America as opposed to how things are around the world and things you've seen. What was like? What can you talk about? How like were you like thrown back like what the heck are y'all doing over here? Like what was
So you have to tell the story about the grocery store, huh? Oh my God.
it
First,
always interests me because I've seen it from a backwards perspective. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
being here for all these years and going other places. And I'm like, y'all do this, but we do this over here. What's going
Yo,
on? You know?
first of all, buying meat from the grocery store, I was culture shocked coming here. It wasn't even about the way that people talk. People were more concerned with how I was talking. Can you say
Yeah,
this?
yeah, yeah,
Can you say this again? Can you say my name? But I remember going to the grocery store with my mom. I told you this story, and we're going to the grocery store, and in Dominica, I don't know what it's for now. They may have tried to be progressive and be like the rest of the world. I hope not. I really hope not.
yeah.
I do know
One
that
of
we
them.
still have the outdoor markets. I do know that each parish still has those things, but we do have, and we had a supermarket, and the
Mm-hmm.
supermarket only had things like laundry detergent from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Canned sardines, I don't know, the non-perishable items that they would have imported in for hurricane season and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So we're not going there to buy seafood, and we're not going there to buy meat. And when I go to
Mm-hmm.
the market with my grandmother to get fruits and vegetables, you possibly, like if you go to the big one in Roseau, you can
Mm-hmm.
get fish, you can get crabs, you can get lobster.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting meat. The meat stand in the country where we at, or down the street from the parish, or whatever. There's like each one has one. They killed a cow on a Saturday. You hear it die, and then 20 minutes
Yeah.
later down the road, they're butchered
Time
and
to
eat.
eat. Time to buy your
So
your rump roast.
I'm looking at my mom and I'm like, y'all buy meat? What are you doing? Like, and she's a West Indian, and I'm looking at her
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? She said, we're getting meat. Because we were barbecuing. She said, stop saying that so loud. People gonna think you're crazy. And I'm like, why do you eat meat from the grocery store? I was like, you were born in the West Indies, right? And mind you, I was just meeting her.
Yeah.
She was like, yeah. I was like, and you guys eat meat out of the grocery store, and you're okay with
Mm-hmm.
that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Wow.
crazy. Buying
Wow.
vegetables out of the grocery store. Like, I guess somebody could say it's like an indoor market,
Mm-hmm.
but it's killing your produce. It's got air conditioning. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a large refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's
And
just, it's,
that's a good point because most people don't even think about what you just said. You know what I mean? Because of just the fact of just being, just in the way we've been programming about food, about doing, so many things over here. Unless you see things done differently, you just think it's normal. But like if it's backwards, you're like, what the hell? So so what about like let's talk about like the mindsets, like as far as let's say an indigenous, like you said, dealing with indigenous people, a mindset, be it spiritually, be it dealing with family and etc., compared to like over here in the States. You know what I mean? Um, do you see a disconnect, a difference, or how could you how could you talk about that?
um, I wouldn't say that there's much of a disconnect. Like, you guys have access to, or not even you have access to, there are people who are operating within the United States that operate within the same energy as if, like our people do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
there are 0 degrees of separation between my people and these people. Like, I have
Hmm.
people who are brought here, we're connected through that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
Now, what I do see is, while those people are operating and doing those things generationally, there's a lot of people on the outside of them that are, because it's everything here is about peer pressure.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
people talk you into doing different things all the time. So
Hmm.
the warfare is more so trying to stay within that, as opposed to just doing it every day. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Trying to
yeah,
fight to
yeah.
hold on to that, just to know that I can do that, as
Hmm.
opposed to actually doing it.
Hmm.
So that's the disconnect, or not the
Yeah, yeah.
disconnect, that's the distraction for the
Okay,
people here.
distraction. I see that.
Yeah. So the
Hmm.
indigenous people, they do what they're doing, and they do what they're supposed to do.
Hmm.
But the people outside who are still trying to find themselves, they're seeking to figure out where they belong, what have you. And then, the others that know what's going on, it's a
Hmm.
lot of different things transpiring that keeps them from just doing.
Hmm.
And then they try to put that off onto the people that know self and want to do what they're supposed to do. And then they're just spending too much time going back and forth about, I want to be me and do me.
Hmm.
And no, you shouldn't, because you're this.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I know that you deal with like credit and like financial, I guess financial literacy. Is that correct?
I can educate on it, but no, I don't deal with that. The finance part of things that I deal with would be like tax preparation for
Okay.
businesses and individuals. And then also there's some bookkeeping and accounting. I got CPAs and accountants that work within the structure
Okay,
to
okay.
take care of
S-
those things.
Was that something that, well, I guess when you came over here, to something that you just like ran onto and learned and just started running with it, or was it,
No.
no?
Um, Moving to the Virgin Islands, like, all right, okay, back up. Everybody has a business. Everybody's tied into the economy
Mm,
down in those areas.
yeah.
So my grandmother on the Virgin Islands, she was a principal by the time I got there, but she's always been in education. And her husband, he is a pilot, private pilot, ran his own charter service,
Oh,
and
wow.
they connected the U.S. Virgin Islands to, the Lesser Antilles, Dominica, those types of places.
Mm-hmm.
They would take charters of 14 passengers and take them down every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then in between those times, my dad's also a pilot. He'd go and do contract pilot services, whether they're delivering, because the smaller pilots, they deliver things like, I don't know, there's a funeral and they have to move a body from one island to the other. They'll take out
Okay.
the seats,
Yeah.
take them over.
Mm-hmm.
They'll deliver mail packages from island to island, those types of things. So
Yeah, yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of different things going on that people are doing down there. So coming to a U.S. territory, our businesses have to do taxes. So
Gotcha.
administrative work, that was the first thing that I learned in the business structure.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a family that created, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, they became independent. They had to build a country's economy. And then they're coming from a sovereign nation into a nation that should be sovereign, but it's owned by a larger oppressive state, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So now they got to work within that structure and be capitalistic so that they're not always working. So yeah, had to learn that from young because everybody
Okay.
works in business. My grandmother and I used to do the administrative and what is that called? Taxes every quarter for the business. And then I did booking, sales, and weighing the bags to balance out the plane,
Mm-hmm.
the people in the bags.
Doing taxes and dealing with business, is that like almost an, considering it's so widespread and like you were saying, is that sort of like an automatic foundation for financial literacy? Are you you know what I mean?
Ooh, doing taxes and business. Well, let's not. That's much broader than just doing taxes and your personal finance. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's two sides to taxes. There's business, and then there's personal.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, and you would want to know your personal finance and your W-2 income before you jump into a business. Now, if you're just a
Yeah,
person
yeah.
who is already in a business, then yes, you need to know personal finance, business, and business finance, because business finance and personal finance, two different things.
Hmm. The reason why I asked that is like because I know just coming through the system here over here, it's like I literally had to learn myself, you know what I
Hmm.
mean, about finances. Like, I literally had to get books and go on YouTube and learn all these different things. Like it wasn't something I was taught in school. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it wasn't a type of foundation that I had here in the States as far as, just okay, well, and like in even in certain in cultures, they implement finances in the culture. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that wasn't like me in the States. I had to do all that myself. And, you know, that's why I was asking that question. Does it mhm.
No, no, I'm listening, but I think you said that they implement finance in the culture. I wouldn't say that they implement finance in the culture. It was only to the case in point that we are an independent nation. So when
Mhm.
you are, you know how here in the States, you got the African Americans and indigenous people fighting for their rights and their reparations,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. And they want to nation build. They want to have independent sovereign nations so
Mhm.
they can be independent citizens in the North American continent. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So in order for you to build something like that, you have
Mhm.
to know the people that are the founding members have to know every single part that's integral to building an economy. And
Yeah.
you have to know finance because you cannot run an economy if you have no money running through it. And now
Exactly.
you're independent. So there is no government funds. You have to create your own
Mm.
funds. You have to put yourself, because when you become independent, you're no longer a part of something. So you're sovereign in the entire world. So
Yeah.
now you got to
Yeah.
put yourself as a country at the world's table. You got to do, and for us, we're surrounded by water, so you got to do import and export. And it'd be the same thing for Africa if everybody get the hell out of Africa. But you know what I mean? Like, you got to put yourself at the world's table. You got to know how to move things that, you know, you don't necessarily need because you're in abundance to a country that would need it, and then move what you need from there to where you are so that you can build homes, build businesses, because it's in the Caribbean, we can be on Travelocity and those types of things. Build presence on the map. One point in my life, the dot was this big, and then after 2005, it has a whole thing with the label. You know what I mean? Like that's I see. Most people don't understand that living in a country like this one, because you're not in front of putting your country on the map, literally.
So you're already there.
Right. And or your family being responsible for those types of things. So here it's beyond the basic thought process. Whereas for me, that's everyday language. I have to know what's going on in my economy, because if me as a citizen who's a chain in this, or a link in this chain, if I don't know and I'm a break in it, then everybody else is going to fall for the next 5 to 10 links. That's going to be on me. No. So it's a responsibility to know each part of all things.
That makes perfect sense, because it's like you literally have to do everything. Your due diligence, you have to do everything to know how to do it, as opposed to it already being set up. And a lot of people are here, it already being set up and still not knowing it. You know what I mean? You know that. So it's
and protected at all costs, because you can have something, you can be a self-sustaining, independent nation, and people are going to try to come and take it from you. So you have to know how to defend it, and you have to be willing to defend it. So all of that goes together as one. So no, it's not a part of culture. It's a part of who we are. We have to be that, because if we're going to keep ourselves free and not be told by another nation what to do, we have to do that.
That makes perfect sense. And I see that that also familiar, beautiful background you have, and very unique.
Yes.
If y'all don't know, that's that Sadiq's Bistro down in Atlanta.
Yes, it is.
You know, and if y'all know me, I've done plenty of events down there and plan on doing some more in the near future. And so, why are you there? What's the story about you being at Sadiq's Bistro?
Well, I was actually led to Sadiq's, believe it or not. I got led to Sadiq's. That story, in a nutshell, is I was sitting in my house and I got to download voice, whatever. It was just like, put on clothes and go drive. And I'm like, where the heck am I driving to? Like, I had no plans that day. Hadn't done anything in the last couple of days. So I've been working from the house. Where am I going? Got up and I'm in Riverdale, which is, you know, down near the airport in Atlanta or outside of Atlanta. And I went out of my home, went down to State Route 138 to the left, then turned on Old National, came around in a circle.
Yeah, you went around a roundabout way.
Came up to a stoplight, and it was actually a Muslim man that was standing at the stoplight. The way I tell it is actually funnier, but it was a Muslim man standing at the light, and he had juice, and I didn't see the pie until later, but he had juice, and I was like, "Excuse me, what kind of juice do you have?" And he had passion fruit and ginger, pineapple and mango, or I might have those backwards, but he had those flavors. And I was like, ooh, I want to try one.
Which one did you get?
I ended up getting both.
Okay. I got the passion fruit, by the way, just so you know.
You know the same person?
It is. More than likely it is.
That's hilarious. Okay, so that's crazy. Tell me that they referred you here. Now that
and some pineapples too, actually, if I'm thinking.
But yeah, so I was trying to move my money to pay for them because the juices were like $10 each. So I owed this person $20, and I'm like, all right, and I'm at a light. And so if you know where Sadiq is, Sadiq sits on an intersection, and I'm at an intersection. It's a busy intersection, just like this one. And the light turns green, and I'm like, crap. Can you hold on to your juice? I'm going to pull over, and I'm going to, and he was like, no, I trust you to come back. And I'm like, okay. So I go across the light, go into the parking lot, park my car, walk back across with these juices in my hand. And he goes, see, I told you I trusted you to come back. And in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I don't know what you thought I was trying to do, but I was just trying to move this money. So I got his Cash App, moved the money, and then he said, "Did you try it?" And I'm like, "No, I hadn't. I just got out the car and walked across the street." So I'm on the side of the road trying the juice at this point. And so I tried the juice, and I think I tried it was the passion fruit and ginger. It was the one with the ginger in it. And he said, "What do you think?" So after I tasted it, I was like, "I could tell you use powdered ginger instead of juicing the ginger and putting it in the juice." I said, "But you can use powdered ginger. You just got to heat it up, liquefy it, and then add it to the juice. So it's gritty and it dissolves." And he was like, he just looked at me like I can't replicate the face, but he was like, he's like, "Do you cook?" And I'm like,
"Yeah, how'd you know that?"
Like, "I do, kind of, sort of." But he goes, "You wouldn't be looking for a place to, do your thing out of. What exactly do you do?" That's exactly how he asked me.
Yeah.
I was like, "I mean, I have private chefs that I staff right now since COVID." I said, "We used to be inside of a space consistently." And I said, "And then that place has shut down indefinitely. So I have them staffed with families and, they travel wherever the families go, things like that." And I said, during COVID, that's how I operated. And I'm, passive. I take things wherever they come because I have other things going on. And he was like, "Would you be interested in getting a place?" And I was like, I mean, a rental kitchen. Yeah, sure. But I go to Prep Atlanta. That's another place. It's like a ghost kitchen. And a bunch of different concepts come through there, but they're there for prep and then they go deliver. So he was like, "I think I may have a place for you." And I was like, "Okay." So he's like, "Take my number." We exchanged numbers. And so didn't really think much about it. Went home, went on about my day. And I think it was by that evening he exchanged the contacts, or maybe it was by that afternoon he exchanged the contacts. And he was like, "Send him a message, tell him that so and so sent you." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Sent the number the message, said exactly what he said to say. And then the person that responded, they were like, I think they said one thing, and then after that they were like, "Can you come now?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm put back on my clothes. I'm gonna go back up the road." Like, what is going on? So I got here. And they were working on the place, and it didn't look like how it looks right now. I mean,
Yeah.
wall.
Because they just started, right?
I'm honestly, I'm not sure. Everything moves so fast.
I'm on the picture side. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, but again, go ahead.
But long story short, by the time the owner came, because when I walked in, everybody was looking at me like, "Who is this person just walking up in here?" Because they told me to walk inside, so I walked inside. Just listening to people that I have never met. And so walk inside, and they're all looking at me, and I was like, "Well, said the person's name. Was like, they said to come inside. I'm just waiting for them, I guess." And they were like, oh, okay. And then they went back to working and doing what they were doing. And then they came, and then they walked me through, showed me everything, told me about the back area. They have a ghost kitchen as well in the back where there's a barbecue that comes through 4 days out of the week. Yeah. And then I think it was the second day. The second day they asked me to come back, and then we talked. We left the location, went and we talked, and then they just hit me with a counteroffer. Like I didn't have a thought process to where it was that I was, what was going on. I thought that I was referred to rent a kitchen space, and then it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. So now we are reopening it, and we have added catering and private events and on-site and off-site catering. Oh, and then in March, there'll be an expansion where it adds additional seating upstairs and a whole entire sports bar. So it's a lot going on.
Yeah, that sound. I mean, that Sadiq, that place is so awesome. I can only imagine it getting awesomer. You know what I mean? And I'm so excited to see how it looks, the final product, and you know what I mean, and the different events that's going to be happening here. So what should the people expect when they come to Sadiq's Bistro? From the once the grand opening is official, what should they expect?
Well, you guys should expect, of course, your vegan food, or I should say ITAL food, because it's not necessarily vegan. Vegan is a created space. ITAL food is going to be your seasonally sourced root vegetables. I'm sorry, root provisions, seasonal vegetables, and soups, stews, chilies, the things that'll feed you on an electric molecular level And then
Mm-hmm.
also for the people who are not necessarily in the ITAL realm of things, then it would be your halal chicken,
Okay.
seafood, lamb. So that's what they can expect. And then when the bar upstairs opens, there will be a completely separate menu specifically curated for that.
Yeah. Okay. So
But
if I,
the eating options either way, you don't have to
yeah,
worry.
yeah.
And then another gem for Sadiq's that I am keeping going because it turned out, oh yeah, after everything unfolded, we had a lot in common as far as how they were running their business prior to, and I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
until they put the website up, and then it was a few days back that I'm finding it out. So I'm walking blindly in all of this, guys, and then not even a week ago, I find out that we literally aligned even more with how we ran our businesses. So elixirs are something that you can find at Sadiq's. Yes, there are alcohol options, but for the people who either don't partake in alcohol, no longer partake in alcohol, or have no interest in alcohol, but you would like the relaxed, euphoric feeling, we have elixirs,
Mm-hmm.
or we will have elixirs.
Okay. Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, educating people and introducing them to other things that they can do and still
Mm-hmm.
enjoy themselves. Have a good time.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm so excited to hear that Sadiq is back up with somebody, is talented and have a lot of professional, and experience as you, because I know a lot of people, you know, before COVID, Sadiq, it was a spot. A lot of, it was really popular. COVID hit and things kind of
Right.
slowed down. But yeah, I'm very excited that they have somebody like you to really, assist in, making it be the best it can be. So very happy to see what you're going to bring to it. Um,
I can't wait to see what happens here.
yeah. um, Also, you, as far as your life consulting, could you kind of talk about specifically what you do as far as your, consulting? Is it life coaching? Could you kind of talk to the people about what you do specifically in that area?
Okay. Consulting is per the definition of the word consulting. I consult with people on whatever the topics are that they need consultations on. Lifestyle, when dealing in the realm of lifestyle, it can vary. People come to me from different walks and different stages in their journey.
Mm-hmm.
So the foundation for lifestyle consulting is helping people find
Mm-hmm.
balance within themselves so that they can become the best version of themselves.
Gotcha.
And yeah, and I guess it just depends on how the person comes to me. Sometimes they come to me and that's just what we're consulting on. Sometimes they're coming to me because they're trying to expand in or expound in their business, make it larger and see increase.
Mm-hmm.
However, they are lacking and they can't get to that next level. And 10 times out of 10 is because there are things that they're not working on within themselves
Mm.
showing out in their business. The same way as if it would show out in a child's schooling
Yeah.
happens later on in their life and what they got going on. So I always end up having to touch on lifestyle. So that's why I have lifestyle consulting as my foundation in business. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well, I I have a lot more. Well, let's just say, I know today I'm very happy to scratch the surface with you. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Because yeah, because I don't want to. Believe me, I have a different angle and twist where I'm going to come in the future. If you would grace me again with your presence on the Polka
Of
Dot Rabbit
course.
podcast.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to show my hand yet. Because I want to go. As we go down the rabbit hole in the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast, and I know you can follow me, or lead me and follow me and ride with me down the rabbit hole. So
Right.
I'm gonna wait, for a future time to, start start partaking that journey. So
Okay.
is there anything else you want to tell the people? You know what I'm saying?
You guys go follow Sadiq's. It's Sadiq's SADIQS underscore bistro BISTRO. And whether you're traveling into the Atlanta area and you guys want to stop in and check it out, check the website. We'll keep it updated there for you, and then join the email list. We actually give updates there. At Sadiq's, you'll get to take part in a lot of different types of events. So, live podcast showings and tapings here. You can host your private events here. You can attend other people's private events here. Networking, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And that's a good hub to keep up with us and even the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast and see what's going on.
Indeed. Well, thank you for that shout out. I appreciate that. But yeah, indeed. Like I said, I know we go in the future. We're gonna really hit this stuff, and I'm actually excited about that. But sis, it was an honor having you on here. You know what I mean? Learn some good stuff, and it's always good when I'm able to have somebody to get my wheels rolling in my head, and you definitely have started that, prior and even now today. But
Mhm.
um, I appreciate everything you do. I always appreciate beautiful people. You know what I mean, and that's why I like to have great individuals, great energy, like yourself on here. I appreciate you so much. You know what I mean, and I thank you very much. And that's really it for me. You know what I mean? Again, if you haven't, please like, follow, and share, and support the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. PD Cash App PDR Corp, because we're making some things happen. We take, in all honesty, just so the people know, because I know they've been, some people have been watching me more. I actually kind of just was doing this, kind of just for fun. You know what I mean? But it seems like it's kind of like taking on life its own. I got to take it more serious now.
Yeah.
I'm going to, take the responsibility that I've been handed, and I'm going to keep on, doing my best to meet with great information and share great information to uplift people. You know what I mean? So, and that branches out to other things I'm doing, and we'll talk about that later. But again, sister, peace and love. Thank you very much for being in here, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Peace. Have a good night.
All right, have a good one. Yay!